You are the innkeeper, and the night has come in soft and slow, the way it always does after rain. The last of the travellers went upstairs some time ago, their boots heavy on the old wooden steps, their voices dropping to murmurs and then to nothing as the doors along the upper hallway found their frames and clicked shut, one after another, like a gentle counting down. You heard them settle. You heard the creak of rope beds accepting their weight, the particular quiet that follows when someone pulls a blanket up and decides that the day is finished. And now the ground floor belongs to you, and the lantern, and the slow, warm work of closing everything up for the night. The lantern sits on the bar for now, casting a circle of amber light that reaches just far enough to show you what needs doing. It is an old lantern, brass gone soft and dark at the edges, the glass clouded slightly in one corner where the heat has worked on it over many winters. The flame inside is steady. There is no draught down here, no restless wind finding its way under the door. And so the flame stands straight and calm and throws its light without flickering, without hesitation, just a quiet, continuous warmth that moves with you as you move, shifting the shadows gently when you lift it, letting them settle again when you set it down. You take the lantern now and carry it to the hearth. The fire there has been burning since late afternoon, when the first travellers arrived with wet cloaks and cold hands, and the particular grateful relief of people who have been outside in weather longer than they planned. You built it up for them, fed it good split oak that caught and held, and it served them well through the supper hour, warming the room while they ate and drank and talked in the easy, unhurried way that people talk when they know they have a roof over them and know where they need to be until morning. But that was hours ago now, and the fire has done most of its work, and what remains in the hearth is a deep bed of embers, orange and red, breathing very slowly, the occasional small flame rising and falling like a thought that almost surfaces and then lets itself go. You set the lantern on the hearthstone and crouch down in front of the grate. The heat comes to meet you, gentle and encompassing, and you hold your hands out toward it for a moment, just because it is there, and it is good, and the night outside is cold and wet. The embers shift slightly, some small internal collapse, and a little shower of spark rises and drifts and goes dark before it reaches the chimney mouth. You watch this happen. You have watched it happen 1,000 times, and it is always the same quiet small event. The sparks going up, the sparks going dark, the embers settling back into their slow and patient glowing. You take the iron poker from its hook and turn the embers gently, checking them, making sure nothing is too close to the edge of the grate, making sure everything is where it should be for the night. The poker scrapes softly against the iron. The embers shift and rearrange themselves into new configurations of orange and red, and the deep, almost purple that lives at the heart of old coals. You are not hurrying. There is no reason to hurry. The travellers are upstairs and the door is bolted and the rain is still coming down outside, and the night will last as long as it lasts, and everything will be tended to in the time it takes to tend to it. You hang the poker back on its hook. You add one more piece of wood, not a big piece, just a short split log that will catch on the embers and burn down slowly over the next few hours, holding a little warmth in the room through the deepest part of the night. You watch it catch, the bark at the edges beginning to blacken and curl, a thin line of flame tracing its way along the grain, gentle and inevitable. When you are satisfied, you stand up again, and the firelight moves with you as you rise, stretching your shadow tall up the wall behind you, and then letting it fall back as you straighten. You pick up the lantern and carry it along the far wall of the common room, where the tables stand in the dimness, chairs pushed in, everything already cleared and wiped down after supper. But you run your hand along the nearest table as you pass, feeling the grain of the wood under your palm, checking for damp, for anything left behind. The wood is smooth and slightly warm from the evening, from the candles that burned on it during the meal hours, from the hands of the people who sat there. You pass from table to table this way, a slow circuit, the lantern in one hand and your other hand trailing along the surfaces, the dark wood, the familiar grain, the small notch near the leg of the corner table where something struck it years ago and left its mark. Everything is in order. Everything is as it should be. You come to the bar and set the lantern down again on the polished wood and reach beneath the bar for the cloth you keep there, a soft square of worn linen, and you begin to wipe down the surface. It is already clean. You wiped it earlier, after the last of the evening's cups were washed and put away, but you do it again now, because it is part of the rhythm of closing, part of the particular order of things that makes the end of the night feel complete. The cloth moves in slow circles over the wood, and the lantern light catches in the surface, a warm, reflected glow, and the bar smells faintly of the beeswax you use on it, and beneath that the smell of the evening, ale and wood smoke, and the wet wool of travellers' cloaks hanging near the door. You fold the cloth when you are done and lay it on the edge of the basin. The cups are all clean, standing upside down on the shelf behind the bar, a row of them in the dimness, their rims showing pale in the lantern light. You count them out of habit, not because any are likely to be missing, just because the counting is a kind of care, a way of knowing that everything is accounted for and nothing has been left undone. They are all there. Of course they are all there. You touch one of them with the back of your finger, the curved clay side of it, cool now and smooth, and then you turn back to the room. The rain comes down outside, steady and patient, and you can hear it clearly now that the voices and the footsteps and the small ordinary sounds of the evening have all gone upstairs to sleep. It is a soft rain, not a driving rain, not the kind that rattles the windows and throws itself against the door. It is the kind of rain that falls because it has been meaning to fall all day and has finally arrived at the right moment. And now it falls without drama, without urgency, simply and continuously, the way breathing sounds when someone has just drifted off, the way water moves in a slow stream over smooth stones. You take the lantern and walk to the door. You check the bolt, though you remember throwing it. You run your hand over the iron of it, the cold solidity of the metal, the bar seated firmly in its brackets. The door does not move. Outside, through the small gap around the frame, you can smell the rain, the wet earth of the road, the cold night air coming in just barely, just enough to notice, carrying with it the smell of autumn and wet leaves, and the particular freshness that belongs to rainy evenings when everything that was dusty in the world has been rinsed clean and set down again. You stand there for a moment, your hand on the door, listening to the rain. Then you turn and walk toward the back of the inn, carrying the lantern through the passage that leads to the kitchen. The kitchen is quiet, the hearth there long since banked. A small glow of coals behind the iron door of the range, just enough to keep the room from going cold. The smell in here is the smell of the evening's cooking, bread and roasted onions, and the rich, deep smell of the stock pot that has been simmering since morning and has now been lifted off the heat and covered and set to cool. You move through the kitchen slowly, checking the range door, checking the window latch, letting the lantern light travel ahead of you into the corners and come back with nothing but the ordinary darkness of a kitchen at the end of the night. The window above the basin is latched. The door to the yard is bolted. A towel hangs from the hook beside the range, and you straighten it as you pass. A small and unnecessary thing, the kind of adjustment that costs nothing and changes nothing except that it is done, and the doing of it is its own small satisfaction. You go back through the passage to the common room, and the common room receives you, and the lantern gently, the shadows drawing back a little as you enter, the embers in the hearth still glowing, the new log beginning to burn in earnest now, a quiet flame working its way along the grain. The rain comes down outside. The chairs are all pushed in. The tables are all smooth and clean. The cups are on their shelf, and the door is bolted, and the travellers are sleeping upstairs, and there is nothing left now except the last thing, the simplest thing, the thing you save for the very end. You carry the lantern to the windowsill. It is a deep windowsill, wide enough to sit on, built into the stone of the wall in the old way, and you have set the lantern there at the end of every evening for so many years that the stone beneath the lantern's base is faintly darkened, a small warm stain, the accumulated mark of all those endings, all those quiet last moments before the night took over completely. You set the lantern down now and hear the soft sound of brass on stone, and the flame shivers once and then steadies, and the light spreads out through the old clouded glass and falls on the window pane, and through the glass you can see the road outside, and the road outside is rain, just rain, just the soft grey nothing of a wet, dark night. You stand there for a while. There is no reason to hurry. There is nowhere else to be. Nothing else waiting. No one calling from the upper rooms or knocking at the door or needing anything from you tonight. The inn is complete, the way a thing is complete when all its pieces have found their places and settled there and stopped asking to be moved. You stand at the windowsill with your hands loose at your sides, and you watch the rain do what rain does, which is to say everything and nothing, to fall and keep falling, to turn the road into a kind of painting made of water, soft at the edges, the trees across the way reduced to shapes, dark smudges against a darker grey, the wheel ruts in the road already full and shining faintly in the lantern light. The lantern light goes a little way out into the wet dark, and then the wet dark absorbs it, the way water absorbs a drop of something warm, gently, without any fuss. You watch this happen, and you feel the warmth of the lantern near your hand, a soft heat that is almost nothing, like standing near a sleeping animal, like the warmth that rises from a cup when all the tea has been drunk and only the ghost of it remains. The glass of the window is cool where it meets the outer air, and there is a faint misting at the corners of the pane, and the rain makes its small, many sounds against the glass. Not loud, not sharp, just the patient repetition of small things falling against a surface that has learned to receive them without complaint. You breathe in. The inn breathes around you. It smells of wood smoke and the clean smell of rain coming through the stones, and the faint residual smell of the supper that was eaten hours ago. Bread and broth, something roasted, something sweetened with dried fruit. All of it softened now into a single warm smell that is just the smell of the place itself, the smell of years of suppers and years of fires and years of people passing through and resting and moving on and leaving behind them nothing more than the faint impression of having been there, having been comfortable, having slept well, and risen in the morning and gone on into their lives, which were happening somewhere and which you would never know anything more about. And this is as it should be. This is the right way of things, the way a river knows nothing of the rain that feeds it and does not need to. The fire in the hearth behind you makes a small sound, a settling, a soft collapse of something that has burned through and given way. And then the quiet resumes, larger than before, the way quiet always seems larger after a sound has moved through it and left. The way a still pond seems more still after a stone has gone in and the last ring has reached the shore. You turn your head a little and look at the hearth without moving from the window, and the log you laid on is burning with an easy low flame. Now, not urgent, not ambitious, just doing what a slow fire does, late at night when it has all the time there is and no need to heat anything in particular, just keeping the room above cold, just keeping the darkness from becoming complete, just being the thing that it is, which is enough. You look back at the rain. The road has become something dreamed rather than something real, out there beyond the glass, and the lantern flame beside you is the only certain light left in the world. Or so it seems, standing here, in this quiet, with the inn all around you, and the rain all around the inn, and the night all around the rain. Layers of gentle enclosure, the way a nest is built, the way sleep comes, in rings of warmth and softness, moving inward until there is nothing left outside them worth attending to. You have stood at this window so many times, on clear nights when the road was silver in the moonlight and you could see all the way to the turning by the stand of beeches, on nights of frost when the cold came through the glass like a hand pressed flat against it, and the stars were very sharp and very far. On evenings in summer, when the window was open and the sounds of insects and cooling fields came in, and the lantern flame bent in the small passing breaths of air. On all those evenings, this same lantern, this same windowsill, this same moment of standing and watching and letting the day finish itself without your help. The day has finished itself. You did not have to do anything for that. You only had to wait, and you are good at waiting. You have had a great deal of practice. And waiting here at the window with the lantern nearby is not the same as waiting for something to happen. It is a different kind of waiting, the kind that is really just being, just standing inside a moment and letting it be as long as it needs to be before it becomes the next moment, before the night deepens one more degree and the fire falls a little lower, and the rain eases or does not ease, and it is time to do the last thing. The last thing is very small. The last thing is so small that it barely counts as a thing at all, and yet you have thought of it every night for all these years as the last thing, and it has always felt significant, the way small ceremonies always feel significant, not because of what they are, but because of the care with which they are done, the care that you bring to them without deciding to, without thinking about it, just naturally. The way you naturally keep your voice low in a room where someone is sleeping, the way you naturally step softly on the stairs. You reach out and cup your hand around the lantern glass. The glass is warm. You can feel the small heat of the flame transmitted through it, gentle and alive. And you hold your hand there for a moment, not touching the glass yet, just feeling the warmth, the way you might hold your hand above the ground on a summer afternoon to feel the heat that the earth has been collecting all day long, quietly, without being asked. Then you lift the glass and lean down and blow the flame out. It goes without any fuss. It goes the way a sleeping person's breath goes out and does not come back in right away, easy and slow. And then the darkness is there, and it is not frightening darkness. It is the darkness that was waiting just outside the edges of the lantern light all along, patient and familiar. And it moves in now, not with any urgency, but gently, the way warmth moves away from something when the fire is out, gradually, unhurried, filling the spaces that the light held open. The ember glow from the hearth remains. It is enough to see by. Just enough. A soft redness that gives the room a different quality. The quality of a room that is already half inside a dream. The shapes of things visible but muted, the tables and the chairs, and the shelf of cups and the door, and the stone floor, and the window, all present and accounted for, but softer now. The edges of things less certain, the boundaries between the room and the darkness outside the room and the darkness inside the room less clearly drawn. You stand in it for a moment. The rain falls outside. It has settled into something very even now. Not the varied music of a younger rain, not the gusts and pauses of a rain with opinions, just the steady falling of a rain that will continue without you, that will continue all night probably, settling into the wheel ruts and the fields and the thatch and the road, making the world softer and darker and more patient, rinsing everything, asking nothing. The inn around you breathes. Somewhere upstairs a board settles. The old sound of the old wood doing what old wood does in the night, contracting, finding its rest. The slow articulation of a building that has been standing long enough to know how to be quiet. The sound moves through the walls and is gone. A traveller turns in a bed, or perhaps it is only the wood again, or perhaps it is the sound of the rain on the roof, received through the bones of the building, conducted downward through beam and joist and plank to where you are standing. You are standing in the middle of the common room now, and you did not notice yourself moving from the window, but here you are, and the room is very quiet, and the fire is very low, and the cups are on their shelf, and the door is bolted, and the rain is outside, and the travellers are upstairs. Everything is where it should be. You walk to the passage. The passage is dark. You know the dark passage the way you know your own hands. You move through it. The stairs are waiting. You go up. The rain on the roof is closer here, softer, a presence more than a sound, a gentle weight of water on the thatch. The world outside doing its slow work while the world inside holds still. Your room is small. The bed is there. You sit down. You unlace your boots and set them aside. The rain comes down. You lie back. The dark is soft. The inn breathes slowly. The embers cool. The road fills with water, and the water runs away, and the rain fills it again. You are warm. The rain, the dark, the quiet all around. Everything's still.